Mom said this picture matters. Her voice was so small it could have been swallowed by the rain outside, yet it was enough to make the most powerful man in the city stop in his tracks. That night inside a luxurious mansion, where no one dared enter without permission, a 6-year-old girl dressed in worn clothes, eyes red from cold and hunger, stood facing a Mafia boss, with the only thing she had left an old photograph. No money, no begging, just that picture. And when he looked at it, the man whose cold eyes had never once trembled suddenly did. No one could understand why a man who made an entire city bow down would freeze in front of a child. Outside, danger was closing in. Inside, a truth was beginning to surface. Something that could destroy everything. But the most terrifying question was, why did a stranger child make him look like he had just lost everything? If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect on the quiet power of kindness, especially when no one else chooses to show it. Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where you're watching from, which city and country are you in, and what time is it there right now. It's always amazing to see how stories like this connect people from all over the world. If moments like this remind you of the beauty of humanity, please like the video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more powerful stories that celebrate compassion, courage, and the simple acts of kindness that can change life. The wind howled through the narrow alleys of Chicago's South Side on a bitter October evening in 2025, carrying the sharp bite of early winter and the distant rumble of the L train. Streetlights flickered weakly, casting long, jagged shadows across cracked sidewalks littered with discarded fast food wrappers and broken glass. In one of the dimmest corners beneath the sagging awning of a shuttered corner store, huddled a small figure, a 7-year-old girl named Lily Harper. Her thin cotton hoodie, once bright pink but now faded to a dull gray, hung loosely on her malnourished frame. The sleeves were rolled up multiple times to fit her bony wrists, and the zipper was broken, leaving her chest exposed to the relentless cold. Her sneakers' soles, worn through in places, were stuffed with cardboard to block the holes. She clutched a frayed backpack to her chest like a shield, the straps fraying at the edges. Inside were her only possessions: a crumpled drawing of a house with a yellow sun, a half-eaten granola bar from the church pantry, and a small cracked photo of her mother smiling in better days. Lily's mother, Sarah Harper, had passed away 3 weeks earlier from pneumonia that had gone untreated because there was no money for medicine or a doctor's visit. The landlord had changed the locks the day after the funeral, and the little girl had been drifting ever since, sleeping in doorways, hiding from the cold in abandoned lots, surviving on whatever kindness strangers offered before suspicion or fear drove them away. Hunger gnawed at her constantly, a dull ache that made her dizzy when she stood too quickly. Sleep came in fits, interrupted by the roar of passing cars or the shouts of arguments echoing from nearby tenements. Her cheeks were sunken, her eyes too large in her face, ringed with dark circles from exhaustion. Yet there was a stubborn spark in those eyes, a quiet refusal to give up completely. She whispered to herself, sometimes soft and timid. Mama said tomorrow's always better. Just hold on. Across the city, in the shadowed opulence of a sprawling estate on the North Shore, Vincent Vinnie Russo stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his study, staring out at Lake Michigan's dark expanse. The room was a study in controlled luxury mahogany paneling, leather-bound books that had never been read, a crystal decanter of aged bourbon catching the low light from a single desk lamp. Vinnie was a tall man, fair-skinned with sharp features and steel-gray eyes that missed nothing. At 48, he carried the weight of 2 decades at the helm of one of Chicago's most powerful organizations, an empire built on influence, loyalty, and decisions that left no room for weakness. His tailored charcoal suit spoke of wealth beyond most people's imagination. Custom shirts from Milan watches that cost more than most homes, a garage filled with cars that purred like predators. Yet tonight the usual calm mask had cracked. Guilt had been eating at him for years, a slow, relentless poison. He had lost his wife Elena to a stray bullet in a drive-by meant for him 15 years earlier. The memory still came unbidden, her laughter cut short, her hand slipping from his as paramedics worked in vain. He had buried her on a rainy afternoon much like this one, vowing never to let anyone close again. The organization became his family, his code of honor, his only religion. But honor had limits. Remorse whispered in the quiet hours, remorse for the lives his choices had touched, for the families shattered in the shadows of his power. He poured another measure of bourbon, the glass trembling slightly in his hand. What kind of man builds an empire on fear and calls it protection? The question burned unanswered. Outside, the storm had worsened. Rain lashed the windows in sheets. Vinnie's phone buzzed a discreet message from one of his drivers, a situation developing on the south side near the old warehouse district. Rival elements had been pushing boundaries, testing his territory with small provocations. Tonight it had escalated. A low-level crew was shaking down businesses, and word was they had cornered someone vulnerable in the process. Vinny's jaw tightened. He did not tolerate senseless cruelty, especially against the innocent. It was one line he still refused to cross. He grabbed his coat, a heavy wool overcoat that cost more than Lily's entire life, and stepped into the garage. The black SUV waited, engine already running. South side, he told the driver curtly. The warehouse on 39th. Move. The drive took 40 minutes, the city blurring past in streaks of neon and shadow. Tension coiled in Vinny's chest, a familiar mix of anger and dread. He had seen too many nights end in blood, too many choices that left scars no money could erase. As they approached the industrial stretch, he spotted the scene, 3 men in dark jackets surrounding a small shape backed against a chain-link fence. The girl, tiny, drenched, trembling, held her backpack like a lifeline. One of the men laughed low and ugly, reaching for her arm. Vinny's door opened before the vehicle fully stopped. He stepped out into the raincoat, flapping presence alone, shifting the air. The 3 men froze. They knew the face, the reputation. "Walk away," Vinny said, voice low, carrying over the wind like a blade. No shout, no threat, just certainty. The leader hesitated, eyes flicking to his companions. "This ain't your business, Russo." Vinny's gaze never wavered. "It is now." A tense beat passed. The men backed off, muttering curses, disappearing into the shadows. Vinny turned to the girl. She was soaked through, shivering violently, lips blue. Her eyes wide, terrified, met his for the first time. Something in them pierced him, not just fear, but a raw, desperate hope that flickered and died, almost instantly, as if she had learned long ago not to trust it. He knelt slowly, rain dripping from his hair. "Hey," he said gently, voice softer than he intended. "You're safe now. I'm not going to hurt you." Lily stared, breath hitching. Her small body swayed, dizziness washing over her from hunger and cold. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. Horror and confusion warred inside her. Who is this man? Why did the bad ones leave? Is this another trick? Her voice came out tiny, timid. "Please, don't take my bag. It's all I have." Vinny's heart twisted a sharp, unexpected pain. He saw Sarah's face in hers, the same determined chin, the same haunted eyes. He had known Sarah briefly years ago, a kind woman who had crossed his path in a moment of vulnerability. He had walked away, thinking it safer for her. Now, looking at this child, guilt surged like a tide. Could she be? No. Impossible. Yet the resemblance clawed at him. "I'm taking you somewhere warm," he said. "Food. Dry clothes. No one will hurt you there." Lily's mind reeled. Numbness spread through her limbs. She felt herself lifted, strong arms, careful, almost reverent. The world tilted as he carried her to the SUV. Warmth from the heater hit her like a shock, making her gasp. She curled into the seat, clutching the backpack tighter, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. Fear battled curiosity. He's rich. Look at the car. Look at his coat. But power scared her. Powerful people took things. Powerful people left. Vinny sat beside her, shrugging off his coat and draping it over her small frame. It swallowed her completely. The scent of expensive wool and faint cologne enveloped her. She peeked up at him through damp lashes. His face was hard lines, softened by something she couldn't name, regret, sorrow. His hands clenched on his knees, knuckles white. Inside, turmoil raged. What am I doing, bringing a child into my world? Yet the thought of leaving her on the street was unbearable. Remorse for Elena, for Sarah, for every life he had failed to protect, it all crashed over him. This girl, this fragile life, felt like a chance at redemption he did not deserve. The SUV pulled away, leaving the alley behind. Lily's eyes drifted shut, exhaustion winning at last. In the quiet hum of the engine, Vinny watched her sleep chest rising and falling unevenly. A fierce protectiveness rose in him, sudden, overwhelming, like a father claiming what was his. Not romance. Never that. Something deeper: responsibility. Compassion. The beginning of healing for a man who had convinced himself he was beyond saving. As the city lights faded toward the North Shore, the rain eased. Vinny leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he thought, I find out who she is, and I keep her safe. The vow settled into his bones, heavy and irrevocable. The black SUV glided through the wrought iron gates of the North Shore estate, just as the rain began to thin into a fine, cold mist. Floodlights swept across manicured lawns that stretched like dark velvet under the October night sky of 2025. Marble steps led up to double front doors, tall enough to admit a horse and carriage. Inside, the foyer alone could have swallowed Lily Harper's old apartment 3 times over. Crystal chandeliers hung silent and glittering, their light refracted across polished hardwood floors that reflected every movement like black water. The air smelled faintly of cedar and leather, clean, expensive, untouched by the sour dampness of the streets. Vinny Russo carried the child through the entrance without breaking stride. She weighed almost nothing in his arms, a fragile bundle wrapped in his overcoat. Her head rested against his shoulder, damp hair curling against the collar of his shirt. Every few breaths she shivered, even though the coat still held the warmth of his body. He felt the tremor travel through her thin frame and into his chest, each one a small accusation. How long has she been out there? How many nights? The questions clawed at him, reopening wounds he had thought long scarred over. A housekeeper, Mrs. Elena Vasquez, who had served the household since before his wife's death, appeared at the top of the curved staircase. Her eyes widened at the sight of the soaked child, but she asked no questions. Years in this house had taught her discretion. Guest room on the second floor, Vinny said quietly. Warm blankets, something hot to drink, and call Dr. Patel. Now. Mrs. Vasquez nodded once and vanished down the hallway. Vinny carried Lily up the stairs himself. The weight of her was nothing compared to the weight inside his chest. Remorse surged again, violent and sudden, like a fist against his ribs. Elena would have known what to do. Elena would have taken one look at this girl and seen everything. He had failed his wife once. Now another small life had been left to the mercy of the city he helped shape. The thought burned. In the guest suite, he laid Lily on the wide bed. The linens were crisp, white Egyptian cotton, impossibly soft. She looked impossibly small against them, skin pale and stretched tight over sharp cheekbones, lips cracked from dehydration, fingers still clutching the frayed straps of her backpack, even in half-sleep. Vinny gently pried her hands free and set the bag on the nightstand. When he opened it to check for anything dangerous, he found only the granola bar wrapper, the drawing of the yellow sun house, and the cracked photo of Sarah Harper. He stared at the picture. The resemblance was unmistakable now, the same soft brown eyes, the same determined mouth. Sarah. The woman he had known for 3 fleeting months, 15 years ago. She had been kind, quiet, working double shifts at a diner near his old warehouse office. He had walked away when things became complicated, telling himself it was for her safety. He had never known she was pregnant. Never known there was a daughter. The room tilted. Vinny gripped the edge of the dresser, knuckles whitening. Guilt roared through him, raw, consuming, tearing at the walls he had built around his heart. I left her alone. I left them both alone. His breath came short. For a moment he could not move, only stand there, drowning in the enormity of what he had unknowingly abandoned. A soft whimper pulled him back. Lily stirred, eyes fluttering open. Confusion clouded her gaze first, then fear sharp and instinctive. She scrambled upright, pressing herself against the headboard backpack dragged into her lap like armor. Where? Her voice was barely a whisper, hoarse from disuse and cold. This isn't, you're safe, Vinny said again, keeping his distance, hands open at his sides. This is my house. No one here will hurt you. Lily's eyes darted around the room, the velvet drapes, the marble fireplace, the silver tray already being set on a low table with a steaming mug of cocoa and warm oatmeal. The contrast struck her like a physical blow. She had spent the last 3 weeks sleeping on concrete, waking to rats skittering past her feet, begging for change outside the grocery store only to be shooed away like vermin. Now she was surrounded by things she had only seen in store windows, things she had never dared touch. The unfairness of it made her throat close. Tears welled, hot and sudden. Why, she whispered. Why me? Vinny had no easy answer. He knelt beside the bed, still at arm's length. Because you were alone in the rain. Because I couldn't walk away. Lily stared at him. Suspicion warred with exhaustion in her small face. She had learned early that kindness usually came with strings, yet this man had stepped between her and danger without hesitation. His coat still enveloped her, heavy and warm-smelling, faintly of rain and something expensive she could not name. Her body ached for rest, for safety, but her mind screamed caution. I don't know you, she said softly, voice trembling, polite, timid the way her mother had taught her to speak to grown-ups. I don't know your name. Vincent. Vinny. He offered the smallest of smiles, the kind that never reached his eyes these days. And you, Lily. She swallowed. Lily Harper. The name landed like a stone in still water. Vinny's heart stuttered. Harper. Sarah's last name. The room seemed to narrow, the air thickening. He forced himself to breathe evenly. A knock at the door, Mrs. Vasquez, with fresh pajamas, a thick robe, and a pair of soft slippers still in their box. Lily watched wide-eyed as the woman laid everything on the bed. The pajamas were pale blue, flannel brand-new tags still attached. Lily's fingers hovered over the fabric, afraid to touch it, afraid it would vanish. Bathroom's through there, Mrs. Vasquez said gently. Towels are warm. Take your time, sweetheart. When the housekeeper left, Lily looked back at Vinny. I can't pay for this. You don't have to. Her lower lip quivered. Everyone wants something. Vinny felt the words like a slap. He had spent his life surrounded by people who wanted something: money, favors, power, silence. To hear it from a child broke something inside him. Not tonight, he said quietly. Tonight you just get warm, eat, Sleep. That's all. Lily studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. She slid off the bed, legs unsteady, and padded toward the bathroom, clutching the pajamas to her chest. The door clicked shut behind her. Vinny remained kneeling by the bed, staring at the empty space she had left. His hands shook. Inside, the conflict raged fiercer than any street confrontation he had ever faced. She's Sarah's daughter. My daughter. The truth settled like lead in his gut. He had built walls to keep pain out, walls of power, of control, of deliberate distance. Now a 7-year-old girl had walked through them without effort, carrying nothing but a backpack and a cracked photograph. He rose and crossed to the window. Outside, the lake was black and restless. In the distance, lightning flickered over the city skyline, his city, the empire he had protected at such cost. For the first time in years, he wondered what it had truly cost. Down the hall in the marble bathroom, Lily stood under the shower until the hot water turned her skin pink. Steam rose around her. She had not had a real shower in weeks, only cold sinks in gas station restrooms, quick and shameful. Now the water felt like forgiveness. She cried silently, forehead against the tile, letting the heat wash away the street grime and the terror. When she finally stepped out, wrapped in the robe that dragged on the floor, she looked at herself in the mirror. Thin, tired, but alive. She returned to the bedroom barefoot. Vinny had not moved. He sat in the armchair now, elbows on knees, head bowed. Lily hesitated in the doorway. "You're still here," she said softly. He looked up. "I'm not leaving." She climbed back onto the bed, pulling the covers up to her chin. The cocoa waited on the tray. She took a tentative sip, rich, sweet, impossibly good. A small sound escaped her, half sob, half wonder. Vinny watched her eat slowly, carefully, as though afraid the food might disappear. Each bite seemed to cost her something, trust perhaps, or the armor she had worn for weeks. When the bowl was empty, she set it aside and looked at him again. "Will you stay until I fall asleep?" The request pierced him. Simple, desperate, honest. "Yes," he said, voice rough. "I'll stay." She lay back, eyes heavy. Her hand reached out instinctively, fingers brushing the edge of his sleeve. Not quite touching, not quite trusting, but close. Vinny remained in the chair long after her breathing evened into sleep. Moonlight fell across the bed, silvering her face. In the stillness, he felt the first cracks in the fortress he had built around his heart widen. Not romance, not possession. Something purer, fiercer, the beginning of a father's vow. Outside, the wind had died. The house held its breath. In the quiet, Vinny whispered to the sleeping child, "I'm sorry I was late." The words hung in the air unanswered but heard all the same. Morning light filtered through the heavy silk drapes of the guest room, soft and golden, the kind of light that belonged in magazines or old family photographs. It was the first week of November in 2025, and the North Shore had turned crisp overnight. Outside, the lake shimmered under a pale sun, while inside the estate everything remained hushed, deliberate, as though the house itself were holding its breath. Lily Harper woke slowly, body aching in places she had forgotten could ache. The bed was too soft, the pillows too many, the blankets too warm. For a terrifying instant, she thought she had dreamed the night before the rain, the alley, the tall man with gray eyes and panic surged through her like ice water. She sat up too fast. The room spun. Dizziness crashed over her, familiar from too many days without enough food. She gripped the edge of the mattress, knuckles white, waiting for the world to steady. When it did, she saw the backpack still on the nightstand, the photo of her mother peeking out. Relief flooded her, followed immediately by shame. She had slept in clean pajamas. She had eaten oatmeal that tasted like comfort. She had been warm. None of it felt earned. None of it felt real. A soft knock came at the door. Mrs. Vasquez entered, carrying a tray, fresh orange juice in a crystal glass, scrambled eggs on fine china toast with butter and jam, a small bowl of sliced fruit. The colors were bright against the white plate, almost too bright. Lily stared, throat tightening. "Good morning, sweetheart," Mrs. Vasquez said gently. "Mr. Russo thought you might be hungry when you woke." Lily's stomach growled, loudly betraying her. She flushed, curling her knees to her chest. "Thank you, ma'am," she whispered, voice small and polite, the way her mother had drilled into her. I don't want to take too much, Mrs. Vasquez set the tray on the bed and sat on the edge of the chair Vinny had occupied the night before. "You're not taking, you're accepting what's offered. There's a difference." Lily looked down at her hands, nails bitten, short skin chapped from cold and wind. She had spent so many nights pressing them between her knees for warmth, sleeping curled on benches or under cardboard. Now they rested on Egyptian cotton. The contrast felt like a betrayal of everything she had survived. She ate slowly, each bite careful as though speed might make it disappear. The eggs were warm, fluffy, the juice sweet and cold. Tears pricked her eyes again. She blinked them away, ashamed. Mama would have loved this. Mama never got this. Vinny appeared in the doorway a little later, coatless sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked different in daylight, less like a shadow, more like a man carrying too much. His eyes found hers immediately, searching careful. "Morning," he said quietly. "Morning, sir," Lily replied, voice barely above a whisper. She set the fork down, suddenly self-conscious. "Thank you for everything." He stepped inside, but stayed near the door, giving her space. "How did you sleep? Like I was dead," she admitted, then flushed. "I mean, really good. I haven't slept good in a long time." Vinny nodded once. The admission landed heavily. He had not slept at all, pacing the study until dawn, staring at old photographs, wrestling with the truth he now carried like a stone in his chest. Sarah, Lily, his daughter. The words still felt foreign, impossible. Yet every time he looked at her, the resemblance sharpened the guilt until it cut. He moved to the window, hands in pockets. "I had some clothes brought up, things that might fit. If you want to change." Lily glanced at the neatly folded stack on the dresser, soft sweaters, jeans with tags still attached, new socks, underwear, all in her size. All brand new. She had worn the same outfit for weeks, washing it in public restroom sinks when she could. The thought of new clothes made her chest ache with something she could not name, gratitude mixed with humiliation. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "You don't have to." But she did. She felt it like pressure behind her ribs. She had learned early that everything had a price. Kindness, especially. Later that afternoon, after Lily had showered again, standing under the hot water until her fingers pruned, she ventured downstairs. The house was enormous, hallways stretching like museum corridors, rooms she was afraid to enter. She found Vinny in the kitchen, a space larger than her old apartment, stainless steel gleaming, a pot of soup simmering on the stove. He looked up from his phone. "Hungry again," she nodded shyly. "A little." He ladled soup into a bowl, chicken noodle thick with vegetables, and set it at the island counter with crackers and a glass of milk. Lily climbed onto the stool legs, dangling. She ate slowly, watching him. He did not eat. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, eyes never leaving her face. "You're staring," she said quietly. "Am I?" He gave a small, rueful smile. "Sorry. I'm trying to figure you out." "I'm not hard to figure," she murmured. "I'm just a kid who got left behind." The words slipped out raw and honest. Vinny felt them like a punch. He straightened, throat working. "You weren't left behind. Not anymore." Lily looked up, eyes wide. Something in his tone, fierce, protective, made her heart stutter. She wanted to believe him, desperately, but belief was dangerous. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Vinny took her to the library. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, leather-bound volumes, a fireplace crackling softly. Lily stood in the doorway, awed. She had never seen so many books outside a library. She was too dirty to enter. "You can read anything you want," Vinny said. "Take them to your room. Keep them." Lily walked slowly along the shelves, fingers trailing spines. She pulled out a thin volume of fairy tales, the cover worn but beautiful. She opened it, and a small folded drawing slipped out, hers, the one from her backpack. She had not noticed it was missing. She looked at Vinny. "You kept this? I thought it was important," he said simply. Tears welled again. She blinked hard. "It's just a dumb drawing." "It's not dumb." His voice was rough. "It's a house with a sun. That means hope." Lily clutched the book to her chest. For the first time since her mother died, she felt seen, not as a problem, not as a burden, but as someone who mattered. Night fell. Lily sat on the rug by the fireplace and the library book open in her lap. Vinny sat in the armchair across from her, pretending to read reports on his tablet. The fire popped softly. In the quiet, Lily spoke. "My mama used to read to me every night," she said, "even when she was tired." Vinny set the tablet aside. "What was her favorite?" "The Velveteen Rabbit." Lily's voice trembled. She said, "Being real hurts sometimes, but it's the only way to be loved." Vinny's chest constricted. He knew about being real. He had spent years hiding behind power, behind walls, behind the myth of untouchable strength. Now this child was peeling those layers away without effort. "Would you read it to me?" she asked timidly. "Just a little." He hesitated. Then he moved to the rug, sitting cross-legged beside her. She handed him the book. His hands, scarred from years of hard choices, turned the pages gently. He read in a low, steady voice. Lily leaned against his arm, not quite touching, but close enough to feel his warmth. When he reached the part where the rabbit becomes real, her small hand slipped into his. Tentative. Trusting. Vinny froze. The simple contact burned through him, fierce, overwhelming love, paternal and absolute. Not romance. Never that. This was something deeper. The fierce, protective ache of a father who had failed once and would not fail again. He kept reading, voice thickening. When he finished the page, Lily whispered, "Thank you, Dad." The word slipped out accidentally, born of exhaustion and need. She gasped, horrified, and pulled her hand back. Vinny did not move. Tears, unfamiliar, unwelcome, stood in his eyes. "It's okay," he said hoarsely. "You can call me that if you want." Lily stared at him, shock and longing warring in her face. Then she leaned forward and wrapped her thin arms around his neck. She buried her face in his shoulder and cried quiet, wrenching sobs that spoke of too many nights alone, too much hunger, too much fear. Vinny held her carefully, one hand cradling the back of her head. Inside, remorse and love collided violently. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." The confession burned in his throat, but he swallowed it. There would be time for truth later. For now there was only this, a small girl who had chosen to trust him, and a man who would burn the world to keep that trust safe. Outside, the lake whispered against the shore. Inside, the fire crackled on. In the stillness, Lily whispered against his shirt, "Don't leave me." "I won't," Vinny promised, voice raw. "Never again." And in that moment, the walls he had built around his heart cracked wide open, letting in light he had thought long extinguished. The days blurred into a fragile routine inside the North Shore estate as November deepened in 2025. Mornings began with sunlight spilling across the breakfast table, fresh fruit arranged like jewels, warm bread that steamed when broken milk poured into heavy crystal glasses. Lily Harper sat at one end, small and watchful, her thin frame slowly filling out beneath new sweaters and soft jeans. Each meal felt like a miracle she did not trust. She ate carefully, never taking seconds unless urged, as though abundance might vanish if she dared believe in it. Vinny Russo watched her from the opposite end of the long table, coffee untouched, eyes shadowed. Every glance at her sharpened the blade of remorse inside him. He had ordered quiet investigations, discreet inquiries through trusted channels. The results had arrived the previous evening in a plain envelope: birth certificate, hospital records from a free clinic 15 years ago. Sarah Harper listed as mother-father's name left blank, but DNA markers matching his own on file. From an old case. The confirmation had struck him like a physical blow. He had spent the night in his study, staring at the documents until the words blurred guilt, twisting into something sharper, more violent, self-loathing. "I could have been there. I should have been there." Yet he said nothing to Lily. The truth felt too heavy for her fragile trust. Lily, for her part, moved through the house like a guest who expected to be asked to leave at any moment. She spoke softly, always please and thank you her voice, carrying the polite caution of someone who had begged on street corners and been turned away. She explored, cautiously touching the velvet drapes, with tentative fingers staring at the paintings as though they might speak. The disparity pressed on her constantly, the heated floors beneath her bare feet versus the concrete that had frozen her toes for weeks, the quiet hum of the house versus the constant roar of traffic and arguments that had been her lullaby. One afternoon, while Vinny was in a closed-door meeting in his office, Lily slipped out the side garden door. The air was sharp with coming winter. She wandered the stone paths, marveling at the trimmed hedges and the stone fountain that bubbled even in the cold. She had never seen a garden that was not overgrown or littered with trash. The beauty confused her, made her feel small and out of place. She reached the tall iron fence that bordered the property. Beyond it lay a narrow service road, then woods, then the distant city. Lily pressed her forehead to the cold bars, missing the chaos of the streets, in a strange, aching way. That was where she belonged, not here. A rustle in the underbrush made her freeze. A boy emerged, 8 years old, skinny as she had been weeks earlier, wearing a too large hoodie and sneakers held together with duct tape. His dark eyes were wary, scanning the estate like a cornered animal. When he saw Lily, relief flashed across his face, quickly replaced by fierce determination. "Lily," he hissed, crouching low. "I've been looking everywhere. Come on, we gotta go." Lily's heart lurched. Jamal Washington had been her shadow since kindergarten, sharing lunches, when hers ran out sleeping beside her under the same bridge when the shelter was full, warning her away from strangers who looked too kind. He had vanished the day after her mother's funeral, taken by child services, only to run away 2 days later. She had thought him lost forever. "How did you find me?" she whispered. "Asked around. People talk about the big house on the lake. Said a man in a black car brought a little girl here." Jamal glanced at the mansion, lip curling. "Lily, this place is bad news. That guy, he's not good. Men like him, they hurt people. They take kids and make them disappear. We gotta leave. Now." Lily shook her head slowly. "He's not like that. He saved me. He feeds me. He reads to me." Jamal's eyes narrowed. "That's how they start. They make you feel safe, then they own you." He reached through the bars, grabbing her wrist. "Come on, I know a place, old warehouse near the tracks. We can hide there, like before." Lily hesitated. Part of her, the part that remembered cold nights, empty stomachs, the terror of being alone, wanted to run. But another part, newer and fragile, remembered Vinny's hand on her back as he read the way he stayed until she slept. She pulled back gently. I can't, she said softly. Not yet. Jamal's face crumpled with frustration and fear. You're gonna get hurt, Lily. You don't know what men like him do. Before Lily could answer, a shadow fell across the path. Vinny stood 10 feet away, coat open, expression unreadable. He had heard the voices from the open office window, stepped out quietly. Now he watched the boy gripping the fence, eyes blazing with defiance. Jamal stiffened, releasing Lily's wrist. Stay back, he warned, voice cracking. I know who you are. Vinny raised both hands slowly. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Jamal laughed, bitter and small. That's what they all say. Lily stepped between them, small body trembling. Jamal, please. He's not bad. Vinny's gaze flicked to her, then back to the boy. He saw the resemblance to Lily's own wariness, the same hunger in the eyes, the same distrust born of too many broken promises. Something inside him twisted violently. Another one. Another child. The city failed. Remorse surged hot and bitter. You're Jamal, Vinny said quietly. Lily's friend. Jamal's eyes widened. How do you? She talks about you, Vinny answered. Says you kept her safe when no one else did. Jamal blinked, thrown. Suspicion lingered, but confusion flickered beneath it. Vinny took one careful step forward. You're cold. Hungry. I can see that. There's food inside. Warm. No strings. Jamal snorted. Yeah, right. Lily turned pleading eyes to Jamal. He means it, I swear. The boy looked at her, really looked. He saw the clean clothes, the color returning to her cheeks, the absence of bruises from cold or hunger. Doubt crept in, warring with years of hard-learned caution. Vinny spoke again, voice low. You don't have to come in. But if you're staying out here, at least take something to eat. I'll have Mrs. Vasquez bring it to the gate. Jamal stared at him, searching for the trap. Finding none, at least not yet, he nodded once grudgingly. Vinny turned back toward the house. Lily stayed by the fence, hand pressed to the bars beside Jamal's. Don't trust him too fast, Jamal muttered. I know, Lily whispered. But her voice lacked conviction. Minutes later, Mrs. Vasquez appeared with a paper bag, sandwiches, apples, bottles of water, a blanket. She set it on the ground just inside the gate and retreated without a word. Jamal snatched it up, inspecting it like it might explode. He handed half a sandwich to Lily through the bars. She took it, tears in her eyes. Eat, he said gruffly. You're too skinny. Lily bit into it slowly. The bread was soft, the turkey tender. She chewed, watching Jamal devour his share. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them, two children who had survived the streets together, now separated by iron bars and impossible kindness. Vinny watched from the terrace, half hidden by shadow. The sight of them, small, defiant, clinging to each other, tore at him. He had built an empire to protect what was his, yet these children had protected each other with nothing but grit and loyalty. Guilt roared inside him, louder than ever. How many more are out there? How many did I ignore while I played king? As dusk fell, Jamal slipped back into the woods, promising to return. Lily watched him go, heart aching with divided loyalty. Vinny approached quietly. He's a good friend. Lily nodded, eyes shining. The best. Vinny crouched to her level. You can see him whenever you want. Here. Or I can help him find a safe place. Lily searched his face. Why? Because no child should sleep in the cold, Vinny said, voice rough. Not ever again. Lily threw her arms around his neck. The embrace was fierce, desperate, burning, with the kind of trust that could only come from someone who had known abandonment and found safety instead. Vinny held her tightly, tears stinging his own eyes. Inside the conflict raged love for this girl, warring with the shame of his past, the fear that his world might still taint her. But stronger than all of it was the vow forming in his bones he would protect her. He would protect them both. From the woods, Jamal watched, hidden in shadow, doubt and hope warring in his small chest. The wind rose, carrying the scent of coming snow. In the quiet that followed, Lily whispered against Vinny's shoulder, "Thank you for not sending him away." Vinny closed his eyes. "I never would." And in that promise, the last wall inside him crumbled. Snow began falling in earnest the second week of November in 2025, blanketing the North Shore in soft, deceptive silence. The estate grounds turned pristine white, the lake frozen at the edges, the tall pines bowing under fresh powder. Inside, the mansion fires burned low in every hearth, and the scent of cinnamon drifted from the kitchen where Mrs. Vasquez baked bread no one had asked for but everyone needed. Lily Harper had gained a little weight enough that her cheeks no longer looked hollowed by hunger, but the change was slow, fragile. She still woke sometimes in the night, heart racing, convinced the bed would disappear and she would be back on the cold sidewalk outside, the shelter wind cutting through her thin hoodie like knives. She would sit up, breathing hard, clutching the blanket as though it might vanish. Then she would remember the house, the warmth, Vinny's quiet voice reading to her, and the terror would ease, replaced by a deeper ache, the fear that this safety was temporary, that she would be sent away when the novelty wore off. Jamal came to the fence almost every afternoon now. He never entered the grounds, refused to, but he accepted the food bags left just inside the gate, and sometimes he stayed long enough to talk through the bars. Lily met him there when Vinny was occupied, slipping out in her new coat, wool-lined, impossibly warm, carrying extra sandwiches or cookies wrapped in napkins. Each meeting felt stolen precious. Jamal still watched the house with suspicion, but the edge of hostility had dulled. He saw Lily's eyes brighter, her steps steadier. It confused him. It frightened him. Vinny allowed these meetings without interference. He watched from the terrace, sometimes coat collar turned up against the wind, heart twisting every time he saw the two children press palms to the iron bars like prisoners reaching across a divide. He had already arranged for Jamal quietly through back channels to be placed in a safe foster home near the lake, one vetted and funded anonymously. But he waited. He would not force the boy. Trust, he knew, could not be commanded. The crisis came without warning on a gray Thursday afternoon. Vinny had stepped out for a brief meeting downtown, routine business, nothing that should have drawn attention. But rival elements had been restless. Whispers of territory disputes had grown louder in recent weeks, and someone had decided to send a message. The attack happened on the return drive just as the SUV turned onto a quiet stretch of Lakeshore Drive. A black sedan appeared from a side street, cutting across lanes, forcing Vinny's driver to swerve. Tires screeched on wet pavement. Another vehicle blocked the rear. 4 men stepped out, masks, no words, only purpose. Vinny's driver reacted instantly, gun drawn, but the first shot shattered the windshield. Glass sprayed inward. Vinny shoved the driver down, returning fire through the broken window, controlled, precise. 1 man dropped. Another lunged for the door. The struggle was brief, brutal, silent, except for the crack of gunfire and the grunt of effort. Vinny took a bullet high in the chest through the shoulder just below the collarbone. Pain exploded white-hot. He felt the impact like a hammer, then numbness spreading fast. Blood soaked his shirt, warm and spreading. The attackers scattered when sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called it in. Vinny's driver floored the accelerator, racing back toward the estate. Vinny slumped against the seat, hand pressed to the wound, vision tunneling. He did not lose consciousness. Not yet. He forced himself to stay awake, thinking only of the house of Lily waiting inside. Not like this. Not now. The SUV burst through the gates. The driver shouted for help. "Mrs." Vasquez met them at the door, face pale. Vinny staggered out, blood dripping onto the marble steps, staining the snow red where it fell. Lily had been in the library, reading by the fire. She heard the commotion, the slam of doors, raised voices, and ran into the foyer just as Vinny entered, supported by his driver. She froze. Blood. So much blood. On his shirt, on his hands, streaking the floor. His face was gray, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold. He looked at her eyes, finding hers across the room, and tried to smile, weak, reassuring. "Lily," he rasped, "go back upstairs. It's okay." But it was not okay. Lily's world narrowed to the red on white marble. Memories flashed her mother's last days, the hospital smell, the machines beeping slower and slower. Horror rose in her throat, choking her. She shook her head, stepping forward on numb legs. "No," she whispered. "No." Vinny tried to wave her away, but his arm would not lift properly. Pain roared through him again, stealing breath. He sank to one knee. The driver caught him, lowering him carefully to the floor. Lily reached him first. She dropped beside him, small hands hovering, afraid to touch. "You're hurt," she said, voice breaking. "You're really hurt." Vinny looked up at her, vision blurring. "I'm fine," he lied. "Just a scratch." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. "Don't lie," she said softly, fiercely. "Don't lie to me, Mrs." Vasquez was already on the phone, calling the private doctor who never asked questions. But the bleeding was steady, soaking through Vinny's fingers where he pressed the wound. Lily acted without thinking. She tore off the scarf she wore, soft cashmere, a gift from Vinny, and pressed it against the hole in his shoulder. Her hands shook violently. Blood seeped through immediately, warm and sticky against her palms. She pressed harder, leaning her small weight into it. "Hold on," she whispered, voice trembling but steady. "Just hold on. Like Mama said when I was sick. You gotta hold on." Vinny stared at her, pain receding for one clear, shattering moment. This child, this girl he had failed before she was even born, was kneeling in his blood trying to save him. The irony tore through him, vicious and unrelenting. I should be protecting her, not the other way around. Guilt surged, violent and consuming. He had built walls of power to keep pain out, yet here was pain bleeding onto marble because of choices he had made years ago. Remorse clawed at him. I brought this danger here, to her, and beneath it something fiercer, love so deep it hurt more than the bullet. Not romantic, paternal, absolute. The kind that made a man willing to die so a child could live. He reached up with his good hand, brushing a tear from her cheek. "Lily," he managed, "you're safe. I promise." She shook her head, tears falling faster. "You're not safe. You're bleeding. You're gonna—" She could not finish the sentence. The word die hung between them, unspoken, unbearable. Jamal appeared at the terrace doors. He had been waiting by the fence, seen the cars race in, heard the shouts. He slipped inside, unnoticed in the chaos, eyes wide with horror. "Lily," he hissed, rushing forward. She looked up, face streaked with tears and blood. "Help me," she begged. "Please." Jamal dropped beside her. He had seen street fights, had bandaged cuts with torn shirts. He pressed his hands over hers, adding pressure. "Keep pushing," he said gruffly. "Don't let up." The three of them knelt there, 2 children and a dying man on the cold marble snow melting off their shoes. Mrs. Vasquez returned with towels, blankets, the doctor minutes away. But in that suspended moment, time slowed. Vinny's vision dimmed. He looked at Lily, her small, determined face, her hands red with his blood, and felt something break inside him, clean and final. This is what matters, he thought. Not power, not territory. This, he whispered, barely audible. I'm sorry. For everything. Lily leaned closer, forehead against his. Don't be sorry, she said fiercely. Just stay. Please stay. The doctor arrived in a rush of cold air and urgent voices. Hands pulled Lily and Jamal back gently. They resisted, crying out. Vinny was lifted onto a stretcher, oxygen mask placed over his face. As they wheeled him away, Lily broke free and ran after them, small bare feet slapping marble. Don't take him, she sobbed. Don't take him away. Vinny reached out one last time, fingers brushing hers. I'm not going anywhere, he rasped through the mask. I promise. The doors closed behind him. Lily collapsed to her knees in the hallway, Jamal beside her, both children clinging to each other as shock and grief crashed over them. The house, once a fortress of warmth, felt suddenly vast and empty. In the quiet that followed, Lily whispered into Jamal's shoulder, he has to be okay. He has to. Jamal held her tighter. For the first time, he did not argue. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the red stains on the steps until nothing remained but white. Inside Vinny's mind, as darkness pulled at him, one thought burned bright. I will not leave her, not again. And in that vow, amidst the pain and the blood, something unbreakable took root. The private medical suite on the estate's lower level smelled of antiseptic and fresh linen, a quiet contrast to the chaos that had erupted hours earlier. Outside, the November snow of 2025 continued to fall in thick, silent sheets, muffling the world beyond the frost-rimed windows. Inside, machines hummed softly, steady beeps, tracking a heartbeat that had come too close to stopping. Vinny Russo lay propped against crisp pillows, the bandages across his shoulder thick and white against his pale skin. The bullet had missed bone and major arteries by millimeters. The doctor had called it luck. Vinny knew better. It had been a small, determined girl pressing a scarf to the wound with everything she had. Lily Harper had refused to leave the room. She sat now in the upholstered chair beside the bed, knees drawn to her chest, still wearing the blood-streaked sweater she had not changed out of. Her hands, small, chapped, trembling, rested in her lap, fingers knotted together as though holding herself in one piece. Jamal had been gently persuaded to wait in the hallway with Mrs. Vasquez, though he paced like a caged animal, refusing to go farther than the door. Every few minutes he peeked in, eyes dark with worry he would never admit aloud. Vinny woke slowly, consciousness returning in fragments, the sting of IV lines, the dull throb beneath the bandages, the faint scent of lilies from the vase on the nightstand. Then he saw her. Lily's face, pale, tear-streaked eyes, red-rimmed, came into focus first. She had not slept. Dark circles shadowed her cheeks deeper than before, as though the night had carved fresh hollows into her. Hey, he rasped, voice rough from the tube they had removed only an hour earlier. Lily's head snapped up. Relief flooded her features, followed immediately by fresh tears. She uncurled from the chair and moved to the bedside, small hands hovering, afraid to touch. You're awake, she whispered, as though saying it louder might break the spell. You're really awake. Vinny managed a faint smile. Told you. I'm not going anywhere. She shook her head, lower lip trembling. You almost did. I saw it. I felt it. Her voice cracked. Your blood was everywhere. On my hands. On the floor. I thought... She swallowed hard. I thought I lost you too. The words landed like stones in still water. Vinny felt them ripple through him, reopening every wound he had tried to bury. Guilt surged, vicious, unrelenting, twisting in his chest until breathing hurt more than the bullet wound. She thought she lost me. This child who had already lost her mother, who had slept on concrete and begged for scraps, had knelt in his blood and begged him to stay. The irony was unbearable. He had spent years building an empire to protect what mattered, yet he had brought danger straight to her. Remorse clawed at him, raw and violent. I failed Elena. I failed Sarah. And now I almost failed her. He reached out with his good hand. Lily hesitated, then slipped her small fingers into his. Her grip was surprisingly strong, desperate clinging, as though letting go would make him disappear. "I'm sorry," he said hoarsely. "For scaring you, for bringing this to you." Lily shook her head fiercely. "Don't be sorry. You saved me first. In the rain, in the alley. You could have walked away. Everyone else did." Vinny closed his eyes against the tide of emotion. "I couldn't walk away. Not from you." Silence stretched between them, soft, heavy, filled with unspoken things. Outside, snow tapped gently against the window, like fingers seeking entry. Inside, the machines beeped on, steady and indifferent. Lily spoke again, voice small. "Jamal said. He said men like you only keep people around until they're useful. Then they throw them away." She looked up, eyes searching his face. "Is that true?" Vinny felt the question like a blade. He had heard similar words from enemies, from allies, from his own conscience in the dark hours. He had lived by codes of loyalty and power, yet power had cost him everything that mattered. "No," he said quietly. "Not with you. Never with you." Lily studied him for a long moment. Then she climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed, mindful of the IV lines and bandages. She curled against his uninjured side head, resting on his good shoulder. "I believe you," she whispered. "I don't know why, but I do." Vinny's throat closed. He wrapped his arm around her, careful, reverent, and felt the small, steady rise and fall of her breathing. Love, fierce, paternal, absolute, burned through him hotter than any pain. It was not possession. It was surrender. He would have torn down his empire brick by brick if it meant keeping her safe. The door opened quietly. Jamal stepped inside, eyes flicking from Lily to Vinny. Suspicion lingered, but something softer edged it now. Uncertainty, perhaps even reluctant respect. Vinny met the boy's gaze. "You kept her going out there," he said, "when no one else did." "Thank you." Jamal shifted, uncomfortable with gratitude. "Someone had to." Lily lifted her head. "He did more than that. He shared his blanket when I was freezing. He gave me half his sandwich when he was starving. He stayed awake so I could sleep." Jamal looked away, cheeks flushing. "It wasn't a big deal. It was to me," Lily said softly. Vinny watched the exchange, heart aching. These two children had survived on scraps and shadows while he lived behind walls of wealth and influence. The disparity struck him anew, violent, humiliating in its truth. Marble floors and crystal chandeliers versus cardboard beds and wind that cut like glass. He had profited from a city that let children like them fall through cracks. Remorse roared inside him louder than ever. "How many more? How many did I never see?" He spoke carefully. "Jamal, there's a room down the hall. Bed. Food. No one will make you stay. But you're welcome here, as long as you want." Jamal's eyes narrowed. "What's the catch?" "No catch," Vinny said. "Just a place to rest." The boy hesitated. He looked at Lily, then at the bandages, then at the quiet luxury of the room. Doubt warred with exhaustion. Finally, he nodded once, small grudging. "Mrs." Vasquez appeared with another tray, hot chocolate, fresh cookies, blankets. She set it on the low table without a word, then retreated. Jamal took a cookie bit into it slowly. His eyes widened, slightly surprised, then reluctant pleasure. He handed one to Lily. She took it, broke it in half, and offered the larger piece to Vinny. Vinny shook his head. "You eat. I'm fine." Lily's eyes filled again. "You're not fine. You're hurt because of us." Vinny reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I'm hurt because of choices I made long before I met you. Not because of you." Lily leaned into his touch. "Then let us take care of you now." Jamal watched the exchange, something shifting in his expression. He stepped closer, hesitant. "If you're staying, I guess I can stay too." "For a little while?" Vinny nodded. For a little while. The three of them sat in quiet stillness, Vinny in the bed, Lily curled against him, Jamal perched on the edge of the chair. Snow continued to fall outside, covering the world in white. Inside, something fragile began to mend. Vinny looked down at Lily's head on his shoulder, at Jamal's wary but softening gaze. Love, deep, protective, redemptive, swelled in him until it hurt. Guilt remained a constant companion, but it no longer stood alone. Beside it burned determination. He would protect them. He would change whatever needed changing. He would be the father neither had known. Lily whispered into the quiet. "We're gonna be okay, right, Vinny?" Pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Yes," he said, voice thick. "We're gonna be okay." Jamal looked away, blinking hard, but he did not leave. In the hush that followed, the machines beeped on, steady, reassuring, and for the first time in years, Vinny Russo felt the stirrings of hope. Outside, the snow fell thicker, blanketing the city in silence. Inside, three hearts beat a little closer together. The snow of mid-November in 2025 had thickened into a steady, silent fall, blanketing the North Shore estate in layers of white that muffled every sound except the soft crackle of the library fire. The room had become their sanctuary. Vinny's medical suite too clinical, the formal dining room too vast, so they gathered here each evening after dinner. Vinny in the deep leather armchair with his bandaged shoulder propped on cushions. Lily curled on the rug at his feet with a blanket around her. Shoulders Jamal perched on the ottoman like he might bolt at any moment. Books lay open between them, half-read stories paused mid-sentence, as though none of them quite trusted the quiet to last. Vinny's recovery moved slowly. The wound throbbed with every heartbeat, a constant reminder of fragility he had never allowed himself before. Painkillers dulled the edge but could not touch the deeper ache, the gnawing certainty that danger had followed him home, that his world had brushed too close to the only two people who mattered. He watched Lily and Jamal with a fierce, almost painful tenderness, cataloging every small change, the way Lily's cheeks had begun to round out again, the cautious way Jamal now accepted seconds at meals without flinching. Each improvement felt like stolen time, fragile and undeserved. That evening the fire had burned low. Lily sat cross-legged on the rug, turning the pages of an old photo album she had found on a high shelf, one Vinny had not opened in years. The leather cover was cracked, the pages yellowed at the edges. She had asked permission first, voice soft and polite, as though expecting refusal. Vinny had only nodded, throat too tight to speak. She paused on a photograph of a younger Vinny, 30-something, smiling in a way he barely recognized, standing beside a woman with warm eyes and dark hair. Elena, his late wife. The sight of her still stole breath from his lungs. Lily traced the edge of the photo with one finger. She was pretty, she said quietly. Vinny swallowed. She was everything. Lily looked up at him, eyes searching. What happened to her? The question hung in the air, heavy as smoke. Jamal shifted on the ottoman, suddenly alert. Vinny had never spoken of Elena to them. The wound had always been too raw, too private. He met Lily's gaze. She was taken from me, he said at last. A stray bullet meant for someone else. Meant for me. Lily's eyes widened. Horror flickered across her face, then understanding sharp and sudden. She had known loss too young. She knew the hollow space it left. I'm sorry, she whispered. Vinny shook his head. Don't be. It wasn't your fault. But the words tasted bitter. Because another loss, Sarah's, had been his fault. He had walked away. He had chosen distance over danger. And Sarah had raised their daughter alone in poverty, so deep it still haunted Lily's every careful movement. Lily turned another page. A hospital photograph slipped out, faded, creased. A newborn wrapped in a pale pink blanket, tiny fist curled near her mouth. On the back, in Sarah's careful handwriting, Lily Harper, born October 15th, 2018. Lily stared at the picture, then at Vinny. Confusion clouded her features, followed by dawning shock. That's me, she said faintly. Vinny's heart slammed against his ribs. He had known this moment was coming. He had dreaded it. Now it arrived in the quiet glow of firelight, unstoppable. Yes, he said, voice rough. That's you. Lily's breath hitched. She looked from the photograph to Vinny's face, searching for something, denial, perhaps, or a lie. Finding neither, she felt the ground shift beneath her. You're... She could not finish. Vinny nodded once. I'm your father. The word landed like thunder in the stillness. Lily's face crumpled. Shock gave way to confusion, then to a wave of emotion so violent it seemed to shake her small frame. Tears welled, spilled, tracked silently down her cheeks. Jamal stood abruptly, fists clenched. You're lying. Vinny met the boy's glare without flinching. I'm not. I didn't know until recently. I didn't know she existed. Lily stared at the photograph again, fingers trembling. Mama never said. She never told me. She wanted to protect you, Vinny said quietly. From me. From this life. Lily's breath came in short, painful gasps. I was alone. I was so alone. Cold, hungry, scared every night. And you were... here. Her voice broke on the last word. In this big house. With everything. Vinny felt the accusation like a physical blow. Guilt surged, vicious, consuming, tearing at him until he could barely breathe. I had warmth. I had safety. I had money. And she had nothing. The disparity struck him anew, humiliating in its truth. Marble floors versus concrete. Full pantries versus empty stomachs. He had lived in luxury while his own daughter begged on street corners, slept under bridges, woke to rats and wind that cut like glass. He slid from the chair to the rug, wincing as pain flared in his shoulder. He knelt before her, slow, careful, humbled. I didn't know, he said, voice cracking. I swear to you, Lily, I didn't know. If I had, you would have what, she whispered. Come for us, taken us away from the cold, from the hunger, from being scared all the time. Vinny bowed his head. Tears, unfamiliar, unwelcome, stood in his eyes. Yes, I would have. I would have torn the city apart to find you. Lily stared at him, chest heaving. Shock gave way to something deeper, grief for the years lost, anger at the unfairness, longing so fierce it hurt. She had dreamed of a father once. Then she had stopped dreaming. Now he knelt before her, powerful, wealthy, broken. She reached out, tentative, and touched his cheek. "You're crying," she said softly, wonderingly. Vinny closed his eyes. "I'm sorry. For every night you were cold, for every day you were hungry, for every time you were afraid and I wasn't there." Lily's tears fell faster. She threw herself forward, wrapping thin arms around his neck. She buried her face in his shoulder and sobbed, quiet, wrenching, the kind of crying that came from years of holding everything inside. Vinny held her tightly, good arm, cradling her small back. Love, fierce, paternal, redemptive, burned through him until it consumed every other feeling. Guilt remained, but it no longer stood alone. Beside it stood vow he would spend the rest of his life making up for what he had missed. Jamal watched, fists still clenched, eyes shining. He took one step forward, then another. Finally, he dropped to his knees beside them. "You really didn't know?" he asked, voice small. Vinny looked at him over Lily's head. "I really didn't." Jamal swallowed hard. "She talked about you sometimes. Not by name, just, maybe my dad's out there somewhere." She never stopped hoping, even when she pretended she had. Vinny's throat closed. He reached out with his free hand. Jamal hesitated, then took it. Small fingers wrapped around scarred ones. In the firelight, 3 figures knelt together on the rug, 2 children who had known only loss and a man who had spent years running from it. Snow continued to fall outside, covering the world in white silence. Lily lifted her head, eyes red but steady. "You're here now," she whispered. Vinny nodded, tears tracking down his face. "I'm here now." She pressed her forehead to his. "Don't leave again." "I won't," he promised, voice thick. "Never again." Jamal leaned in, resting his head against Lily's shoulder. For the first time, he did not pull away. In the quiet that followed, the fire popped softly, and the house held its breath. Vinny closed his eyes, holding them both close. Inside him, the last remnants of the walls he had built crumbled completely. What remained was raw, aching, beautiful, a father's love, belated but absolute. Outside, snow fell thicker. Inside, something unbreakable had begun. The last week of November in 2025 brought a brittle cold to Chicago. The snow had melted and refrozen into treacherous sheets of ice on the streets, and the North Shore estate stood wrapped in gray twilight, its windows glowing like beacons against the early dusk. Inside, the house had settled into a careful rhythm, Vinny moving more slowly, shoulders still stiff beneath the bandages. Lily and Jamal orbiting him like small moons drawn by the gravity of safety they still did not fully trust. Vinny had begun making quiet changes. Meetings were moved to secure locations outside the house. Guards were doubled at the perimeter, but discreetly, no black SUVs idling visibly on the drive. He had spoken with trusted men, only issuing orders to pull back from contested territories to let rivals think they had won small concessions. He wanted peace. For the first time in decades, peace mattered more than power. But peace in his world was never given freely. The call came just after dinner on a Tuesday evening. Vinny was in the library with the children, Lily reading aloud from a worn copy of Charlotte's Web, Jamal listening with his chin on his knees when his phone vibrated once sharply. He glanced at the screen. Marco, his consigliere of 20 years, the man who had stood beside him through every war, every loss. Vinny stepped into the hallway to take the call. Boss Marco's voice was low, urgent. "We need to meet. Now. Something's wrong." Vinny's stomach tightened. "Where? Old warehouse on 39th. The one near the tracks. Alone." Vinny hesitated. The location was too exposed, too familiar from the night he had found Lily. But Marco had never asked for a private meeting without cause. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, he said. He returned to the library, forcing calm into his voice. "I have to step out for a little while." "Business." Lily looked up, book still open in her lap. "Will you be gone long?" "Not long," he promised. He knelt, kissed the top of her head, then ruffled Jamal's hair. "Stay inside. Mrs. Vasquez is here. No going to the fence tonight." Jamal nodded once, eyes sharp, with the street wisdom that had kept him alive so long. "Be careful." Vinny drove himself alone as requested. The city lights blurred past reflections, sliding across wet pavement. Tension coiled in his chest, familiar but different now. Before, danger had been abstract, a cost of doing business. Now every risk carried faces: Lily's tear-streaked cheeks, Jamal's wary trust. The thought of failing them again made his hands tighten on the wheel until his knuckles ached. The warehouse district was dark, abandoned cranes, looming like skeletons against the night sky. Vinny parked near the loading dock, stepped out into the cold. The wind cut through his coat, carrying the smell of diesel and rust. Marco waited inside, silhouetted against a single hanging bulb. He looked older, lines deeper around his eyes, shoulders hunched in a way Vinny had never seen. Boss Marco said quietly. We need to talk. Vinny stopped 10 feet away. Talk. Marco exhaled breath fogging in the chill. It's about the girl. Lily. Vinny's blood turned to ice. What about her? Marco looked away, then back. She's not just any kid. She's yours. Sarah's kid. I knew. The words landed like a fist to the chest. Vinny felt the air leave his lungs. You knew, he repeated, voice dangerously soft. Marco nodded once. Sarah came to me 8 years ago. She was pregnant. Scared. Said she couldn't raise the baby in your world. Asked me to help her disappear. I did. I made sure no one looked too close. I thought I was protecting you, keeping you focused, keeping the family strong. Vinny took one step forward. You let my daughter grow up on the streets. You let her mother die alone. You let her sleep in alleys while I sat in a mansion. Marco's voice cracked. I thought it was mercy. You were already broken after Elena. Another kid. Another weakness. I thought the rivals would use her. I thought I was saving you from yourself. Vinny's vision narrowed. Rage and grief collided inside him, violent, blinding. He had trusted this man with his life, with everything. And Marco had stolen years from his daughter. You killed her, Vinny said, the words barely audible. You killed Sarah. Marco flinched. No, not directly. But when she started asking questions again last year, when she got sick and couldn't pay for treatment, I made sure the help never reached her. I told myself it was cleaner, that she'd never tell, that Lily would never know. Vinny closed the distance in 3 strides. He grabbed Marco by the collar, slamming him against a rusted beam. Pain flared in his shoulder, but he ignored it. You took everything from me, he snarled. Everything. Marco did not resist. Tears stood in his eyes. I thought I was doing right by the family. By you. Vinny's grip tightened. For one terrible moment, he saw only red, saw himself ending this betrayal the way he had ended so many others. Then he heard Lily's voice in his memory. Don't become like them. He released Marco. The older man slid to the floor, coughing. Vinny stepped back, chest heaving. You're done, he said quietly. You're out. Tonight. And if you ever come near my daughter again, if you ever come near either of them, I will forget every year you stood beside me. Marco looked up, broken. I'm sorry, Vinny. Vinny turned away. Sorry doesn't bring back 15 years. He walked out into the night, leaving Marco in the dark. But the night was not finished with him. As he reached the SUV, headlights flared from the shadows. 2 vehicles, black unmarked, blocked the exit. Doors opened. 5 men stepped out. Not Marco's people. Rivals. The same crew that had ambushed him weeks earlier. They had been watching, waiting. The leader, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, smiled thinly. Russo. Heard you were soft these days. Heard you had a kid now. Kids make men careless. Vinny's hand hovered near the concealed holster beneath his coat. Walk away, he said evenly. This doesn't have to end badly. Scarface laughed. Too late for that. Word is you're pulling back. Makes you look weak. Makes us look strong if we take something from you. Vinny's pulse thundered. Not fear for himself. Fear for Lily. For Jamal. For the fragile life he had only just begun to build. He spoke slowly, deliberately. You touch them, you die. Simple as that. Scarface gestured. 2 men moved forward. Vinny drew first, smooth practiced. 1 shot into the air. The sound echoed across the empty lot like thunder. Last chance, he said. The men hesitated. Then Scarface nodded. They rushed him. Vinny fought precise, controlled years of instinct overriding pain. He disarmed one, slammed another against a car hood, took a fist to the ribs that made his vision swim. His shoulder screamed. Blood seeped through the bandages again. He was losing ground. Then headlights swept the lot, his own people alerted by the shot. Tires screeched. Doors flew open. The rivals scattered, retreating into the dark. Vinny staggered back to the SUV, breathing hard. His driver jumped out, supporting him. Home, Vinny rasped. Now. The drive blurred. Pain throbbed with every heartbeat. Guilt throbbed louder. I brought this to them. Again. When he reached the estate, he refused the stretcher. He walked limping, bleeding through the front doors. Lily and Jamal were waiting in the foyer. They had heard the sirens in the distance, seen the lights flashing through the windows. Lily's face went white when she saw him, blood on his coat again, fresh bruises blooming across his cheek. She ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. You're hurt again, she sobbed. You promised. Vinny dropped to one knee, pulling her close despite the pain. I'm here, he whispered. I'm here. Jamal stood frozen a few feet away, eyes wide. Then he stepped forward, small hand resting on Vinny's good shoulder. You okay? Vinny looked at them both, his daughter, his daughter's brother, in every way that mattered, and felt the last piece fall into place. I will be, he said, because of you. He held them both in the foyer, blood staining their clothes, snow melting on the marble behind them. In that moment, amid the pain and the betrayal and the danger, Vinny Russo made his final choice. He would burn it all down if he had to. For them, only for them. The first days of December in 2025 arrived with a deceptive calm. The snow had stopped leaving, Chicago wrapped in a brittle, crystalline silence. The North Shore estate stood quiet under a pale winter sun, its windows reflecting the frozen lake like mirrors. Inside the house felt smaller, somehow more intimate, as though the walls themselves had drawn closer around the three people who now moved through its halls like a family still learning how to breathe the same air. Vinny Russo had not yet told Lily everything. The confrontation with Marco had left him raw, bleeding, not only from the reopened wound in his shoulder but from a deeper cut, the knowledge that betrayal had worn his oldest friend's face for years. He carried the weight of it alone at first, pacing the study at night, while the children slept, staring at the fire until the flames blurred. Guilt had become a constant companion, sharper now, more vicious. Every time he looked at Lily's face rounder, now softer, with regular meals and safety, he saw Sarah's eyes staring back, accusing him of absence. I could have found you. I should have looked. The thought looped endlessly, tearing at him until sleep became impossible. Lily sensed the change. She watched him with the careful attention of someone who had once depended on reading moods to survive. She spoke softer around him, moved slower as though afraid any sudden motion might shatter the fragile peace they had built. Jamal, too, had grown quieter, less quick to challenge, more willing to stay inside the house, though he still slept with one eye open, still kept his backpack packed beneath the bed in the guest room he had claimed. The revelation came on a quiet Saturday afternoon. Vinny had called them both to the library after lunch. The fire burned low, casting warm shadows across the shelves. Lily sat on the rug with her knees drawn up, Jamal beside her, their shoulders almost touching. Vinny stood at the window for a long moment, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the frozen expanse of the lake. Then he turned. There's something I need to tell you, he said quietly. Both of you. Lily's small hand reached instinctively for Jamal's. He squeezed back, eyes narrowing. Vinny crossed the room and sat on the edge of the ottoman facing them. His face was drawn, the lines around his eyes deeper than they had been even after the shooting. After I found you, Lily, he began, I asked questions, quiet ones, about your mother, about why she never told me you existed. Lily's breath caught. You said she wanted to protect me. She did. Vinny's voice cracked on the word. But there was more. Marco, my consigliere, the man I trusted most, he knew about you. He knew about Sarah, and he made sure I never found out. Jamal stiffened. He knew. Vinny nodded once. He helped her disappear when she was pregnant. Paid for a new name, a new city. Then, when she got sick last year, when the hospital bills piled up and she couldn't pay, he made sure the assistance never reached her. He let her die. Let you end up on the street. Lily's face went blank. Shock drained the color from her cheeks. She stared at Vinny, as though the words had not yet reached her. Jamal spoke first, voice low, and dangerous for an 8-year-old. He killed her, not with his hands, Vinny said, but he made sure she couldn't be saved. Because he thought a child would make me weak, make me vulnerable. He thought he was protecting the family, protecting me by keeping you hidden, by letting your mother suffer alone. Lily's breathing grew shallow. She pressed both hands to her chest as though trying to hold her heart inside. Mama died because of him. Vinny bowed his head. Yes. The room tilted for Lily. Numbness spread from her fingertips to her core. She remembered the hospital room beeping machines, her mother's hand growing colder in hers, the nurse whispering that there was nothing more they could do without money. She remembered the eviction notice taped to the door the next morning, the landlord's cold face, the way she had gathered her things in a trash bag and walked into the night. She remembered nights under bridges, wind slicing through her hoodie, hunger so sharp it made her dizzy. Nights she had cried herself to sleep, wondering why no one came for her. All of it, every cold night, every empty stomach, every time she had whispered, Mama, where are you, into the dark, because one man had decided her life was a liability. A sound escaped her, small at first, then building into a raw, keening sob. She rocked forward, forehead pressed to her knees, arms wrapped around herself as though she might break apart. Jamal moved closer, wrapping his arms around her from the side, holding tight. Vinny knelt before them both. Tears tracked silently down his face, tears he made no attempt to hide. I didn't know, he whispered. I swear on everything I am, I didn't know. Lily lifted her head, eyes wild with grief and rage. You had everything, she cried. You had this house. You had money. You had people. And Mama had nothing. I had nothing. We froze. We starved. We were scared every single night. And you were here. Warm. Safe. While we—" Her voice broke. She pressed her fists to her eyes, shoulders shaking. Vinny reached for her slowly, carefully, and when she did not pull away, he drew her into his arms. She fought him for a moment, small fists pushing against his chest, then collapsed against him, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry, Lily." Jamal watched tears streaming down his own face. He had known hunger. He had known cold. He had known the terror of being invisible. But to learn that someone had chosen that fate for his best friend, that someone had chosen death for her mother, shattered something inside him. Vinny held them both, Lily against his chest, Jamal pressed to his side. Pain radiated from his shoulder, but it was nothing compared to the agony in his heart. Guilt roared through him, violent and unrelenting. I failed her. I failed them both. My empire meant nothing. My power meant nothing. All that time she was suffering because of the world I helped build. He rocked them gently, murmuring apologies that felt too small too late. After a long time, Lily's sobs quieted to hiccuping breaths. She lifted her face, cheeks streaked with tears. "Did Mama know?" she asked in a small broken voice. "Did she know you were my dad?" Vinny shook his head. "She never told me. But she loved you enough to keep you away from all this. To keep you safe." Lily's lip trembled. "She wasn't safe. Neither was I." Vinny closed his eyes against the fresh wave of pain. "No," he admitted. "You weren't." Lily leaned back slightly, looking up at him. "But you're here now." "I am. And you won't leave, never." She reached up, small hand cupping his cheek the same way she had done the night he first held her. "Then that's enough," she whispered. "For now, that's enough." Vinny gathered her close again. Jamal leaned in, resting his forehead against Lily's shoulder. The three of them stayed like that, kneeling on the rug before the dying fire, while the winter light faded outside. In the stillness, Vinny made a silent vow he would dismantle every part of his life that had allowed this to happen. He would protect them not with power, not with fear, but with whatever goodness still remained in him. Outside, the lake lay frozen and still. Inside, three hearts beat together, bruised, healing, and finally fiercely connected. The middle of December in 2025 brought the first true blizzard to Chicago. Wind howled off the lake, driving snow horizontally against the estate windows until the glass rattled like distant gunfire. Inside, the house felt sealed against the world. Fires burning in every room, lights kept low, the three of them moving through the days in a fragile cocoon of routine. Vinny's shoulder had begun to heal, the bandages lighter now, but the deeper wounds, the ones carved by betrayal and belated truth, remained open, raw, bleeding into every quiet moment. Lily and Jamal had grown inseparable in the house. They shared the library most afternoons, reading side by side or playing quiet games with the chess set Vinny had brought down from a high shelf. Lily's laughter, still rare, still tentative, had begun to sound more often. Jamal's shoulders had relaxed fractionally. He no longer slept with his shoes on, yet both children carried shadows. Lily woke sometimes in the night, whispering her mother's name into the dark. Jamal still checked the windows before he would settle anywhere, still kept his backpack within reach. They had learned too young that safety could vanish in a heartbeat. Vinny watched them constantly. Every smile they shared, every small act of trust toward him felt like a gift he did not deserve. Guilt had become a second heartbeat, steady, relentless. He had dismantled much of the old structure in the weeks since Marco's confession. Territories ceded quietly, men reassigned or let go, operations scaled back to the bare minimum needed for protection. He told himself it was for them. He told himself it was redemption. But at night alone in the study, he wondered if any amount of change could erase 15 years of absence. The storm peaked on a Thursday night. Power flickered once, twice, then held. The wind screamed against the house like something alive and angry. Vinny had sent most of the staff home early. Only Mrs. Vasquez and 2 trusted guards remained. He sat with the children in the library, reading aloud from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, a story of children stepping into another world, finding courage they did not know they possessed. Lily leaned against his good side Jamal on the rug with his back to the fireplace. The firelight danced across their faces, softening the sharp edges of memory. A soft knock came at the door. Mrs. Vasquez entered, face pale. "Sir, there's someone at the gate." "A man. He says he's here for Lily." Vinny closed the book slowly. Every muscle in his body tensed. Description scar on his cheek. Says he's here to collect what's owed. Vinny felt the room tilt. The same scar-faced man from the warehouse ambushed the one who had taunted him about weakness, about children making men careless. He had not been seen since that night. Vinny had assumed the message had been sent and received. Apparently not. "Lock everything down," he said quietly. "No one in or out." Mrs. Vasquez nodded and left. Lily sat up straight. What's happening? Vinny looked at her, really looked, and saw the fear already rising in her eyes, the old wariness returning like a tide. He forced his voice steady. Someone from before, he said. Someone who doesn't understand we're done. Jamal stood. The guy from the cars, the one who hurt you, Vinny nodded once. Lily's small hands clenched in her lap. He wants me. Vinny knelt in front of her. He's not getting you. Not tonight. Not ever. But the wind screamed louder, and somewhere in the house a window rattled violently. The power cut out. Darkness swallowed the room, except for the firelight. Lily gasped. Jamal grabbed her hand. Vinny rose, moving to the window. Outside, shapes moved through the snow, dark figures scaling the perimeter fence, cutting through the storm like shadows. They were already inside the grounds. Vinny turned back to the children. Upstairs. Now. The safe room. Lily shook her head. I'm not leaving you. Vinny crouched again, cupping her face gently. Lily, listen to me. I need you safe. That's the only thing that matters. Tears welled in her eyes. You always say that. But you get hurt. Every time. Vinny's throat closed. I know. And I'm sorry. But I'm asking you to trust me one more time. Lily searched his face. Then she nodded, small, trembling. Jamal tugged her toward the door. Come on. They moved quickly through the darkened halls, Vinny behind them, gun drawn but held low. The house felt suddenly too large, too many corners, too many shadows. Wind tore at the windows. Somewhere downstairs, glass shattered. They reached the safe room, a reinforced space behind the master bedroom closet. Vinny opened the hidden panel, ushered them inside. The room was small but secure, reinforced walls, independent ventilation, a small cot, bottled water, emergency lights. He knelt again. Stay here. Lock it from the inside. Don't open for anyone but me. Lily clung to his sleeve. Promise you'll come back. Vinny pressed his forehead to hers. I promise. He kissed her forehead, then Jamal's. Look after each other. Jamal nodded, jaw set. We will. Vinny stepped out. The door sealed behind him with a soft click. He moved through the house like a ghost, silent, methodical. Downstairs voices echoed low, confident searching. He counted 4. Scarface was among them. Vinny waited in the foyer shadows. They entered the main hall, flashlights cutting through the dark. Scarface led, gun raised. Russo, he called. We know you're here. We know about the kid. Hand her over and this ends quiet. Vinny stepped into the light. You're not taking her. Scarface smiled. You're bleeding again. Shoulders still weak. You're one man. We're 4. Vinny raised his gun. Then it's 4 against 1. They moved. The fight was quick, brutal, controlled. Vinny fired once, warning shot into the ceiling. Plaster rained down. One man lunged. Vinny sidestepped, drove an elbow into his throat. Another swung a bat. Vinny caught it twisted, disarmed him. Pain exploded in his shoulder with every movement, but he pushed through. Scarface fired. The bullet grazed Vinny's side, hot, searing. He staggered, but stayed upright. Blood soaked his shirt again. He straightened slowly. Scarface laughed. You're done, Russo. Give us the girl. We'll make it quick. Vinny's vision narrowed. He saw Lily's face, tear-streaked, trusting. Jamal's small hand on her shoulder. The years he had missed. The nights she had spent cold and alone. He raised his gun, then movement. From the staircase. Lily stood at the top, small and trembling, eyes wide with terror. She had slipped out of the safe room, Jamal behind her, trying to pull her back. No, she cried. Don't hurt him. Scarface turned. Vinny's heart stopped. Lily ran down the stairs, bare feet, slapping marble nightgown trailing. She threw herself between Vinny and the gun, small arms spread wide. Stop, she screamed. Just stop. Time froze. Scarface's finger tightened on the trigger. Vinny lunged. The shot rang out. Lily gasped, sharp, small. A thin line of red bloomed across her upper arm. The bullet had grazed her, shallow but bleeding. She swayed. Vinny caught her before she fell, pulling her behind him, shielding her with his body. Rage, pure blinding, erupted inside him. He fired once. Scarface dropped. The other men froze. Vinny's voice, when it came, was low, lethal. Leave. Now. They backed away, disappearing into the storm. Vinny sank to the floor, cradling Lily. Blood soaked both of them, hers. She looked up at him, eyes glassy with shock. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't want you to get hurt again. Vinny pressed his hand to her arm, staunching the flow. Tears streamed down his face, open, unashamed. You saved me, he choked out. You saved me, Lily. Jamal reached them, dropping to his knees. She's bleeding. Vinny nodded. I know. Lily lifted her good hand, touching Vinny's cheek. You're crying, she said faintly. Vinny nodded. Because you're hurt. Because you stepped in front of a gun for me. Lily's eyes fluttered. You'd do it for me. Vinny pressed his forehead to hers. Every time. Every single time. Mrs. Vasquez appeared with towels, pressure, bandages. The doctor was already on his way. Vinny held Lily close, rocking her gently. Stay with me, he whispered. Stay with me, sweetheart. She nodded weakly. I will. I promise. In the chaos of blood and storm, Vinny felt the final shift inside himself. No more empire. No more power plays. Only this, only them. He had almost lost her, and she had saved him. In the quiet between heartbeats, he whispered against her hair, You're my daughter. You're my everything. Lily's small hand tightened on his shirt, and in that moment, amid the pain, the blood, the storm, the last of the old Vinny Russo died. What remained was a father. Only a father. The blizzard of December in 2025 eventually passed, leaving Chicago buried under a quiet, pristine white that softened even the hardest edges of the city. The North Shore estate emerged slowly from the storm, icicles hanging from the eaves like crystal tears, the frozen lake gleaming under a weak winter sun. Inside the house, the air smelled of cinnamon and wood smoke, and for the first time in weeks, the three of them moved through the days without the constant shadow of danger pressing at the windows. Lily's arm healed cleanly. The graze had been shallow, leaving only a thin pink line that she traced sometimes when she thought no one was watching. She wore long sleeves most days, not from shame but from a lingering sense that scars should be private. Jamal stayed close to her, a silent guardian, though his backpack now sat unpacked in the closet of his room. Vinny's shoulder mended more slowly, but the deeper wounds, the ones carved by guilt and belated truth, had begun to scar over, not disappear, but change shape into something bearable. He had kept his promise. The organization he once commanded had been quietly dismantled. Territories released without fanfare. Men paid generously to walk away. The mansion, once a fortress of power, became simply a home. The marble floors still gleamed, the chandeliers still caught light like captured stars, but the weight of empire no longer hung in the air. What remained was space for three people learning day by day what family could mean. On a clear Saturday morning near the end of the month, sunlight poured through the tall windows of the sunroom. Vinny sat at the table with the children, a simple breakfast spread between them. Fresh orange juice in heavy glasses, warm muffins, scrambled eggs, and a small vase of evergreen clippings Lily had gathered from the garden. She had insisted on arranging them herself, tiny fingers careful with the stems. Jamal bit into a muffin, crumbs falling onto his plate. This is better than the stuff we used to steal from the bakery bins, he said quietly. Lily nodded, but her eyes stayed on Vinny. You didn't have to stop everything, she said softly. You could have kept some of it. The power, the money. Vinny set his coffee down. I kept what matters, he answered. The rest. It cost too much. He looked at them, really looked. Lily's face had filled out, her eyes brighter, though they still carried the shadow of too many hungry nights. Jamal's shoulders had straightened, but his gaze still darted to exits out of habit. Vinny felt the familiar twist in his chest, remorse that would never fully leave, but now walked beside something warmer, gratitude so deep it ached. I was wrong for so long, he said quietly. I thought power kept people safe. I thought distance kept them safe. But all it did was leave you out in the cold. You and your mother. And I can't undo those years. I can't give them back. Lily reached across the table, small hand covering his. You're giving us now, she whispered. That's what counts. Jamal looked down at his plate. I never had a dad, he said after a moment. Not really. Just guys who came and went. But you stayed. Even when it hurt. Vinny's throat tightened. I'm not perfect. I never will be. But I'm here. And I'm staying. Lily smiled, small, tentative but real. Then we're staying too. Later that afternoon, they walked outside together for the first time since the storm. The snow had been cleared from the paths, but drift still rose high against the hedges. Vinny carried a sled, an old wooden one he had found in storage, painted red years ago by hands that no longer moved in this world. Elena's hands. He had almost put it back, but Lily had seen it and asked softly if they could try. They reached the gentle slope behind the house. Lily sat first, then pulled Jamal down in front of her. Vinny stood behind, hands on the sled. Ready, he asked. Lily nodded, eyes shining with a mixture of fear and delight. Ready. He gave a gentle push. They slid down slow at first, then faster laughter rising behind them like steam in the cold air. Lily's voice rang out, clear and bright, the sound of a child who had forgotten for a moment what hunger felt like. Jamal whooped loud, unrestrained, the sound echoing across the frozen lawn. Vinny watched them reach the bottom, climb off, wave up at him. His heart, once armored, once guarded, felt exposed, raw, alive. He walked down to meet them. Lily ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. Again, she asked, breathless. Vinny lifted her, careful of his shoulder, and spun her once slowly. As many times as you want. Jamal joined them, grinning despite himself. You're gonna get snow everywhere, he teased. Vinny set Lily down. Good. Then we'll have to come inside and get warm. Hot chocolate, blankets, stories. Lily pressed her face to his coat. Stories about when you were little, Vinny's voice softened. If you want, or stories about your mother. About how brave she was. About how much she loved you. Lily nodded against him. I want all of them. They trudged back up the hill, 3 figures in the snow footprints trailing behind them like promises. Inside, Mrs. Vasquez waited, with mugs of cocoa and fresh cookies. They sat by the fire blankets draped over shoulders, faces flushed from cold and laughter. Vinny looked at them, his daughter, her chosen brother, and felt the last piece settle into place. I love you both, he said quietly. More than anything in this world. Lily leaned against him. We love you too. Jamal nodded, eyes shining. Yeah, we do. Outside, the winter sun dipped low, painting the snow gold. Inside, a family imperfect, scarred but whole, began again. Knowledge teaches us that true strength is not in power or wealth, but in the quiet choice to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Lesson after lesson reminds us that compassion crosses every boundary, because love does not see skin color, bank accounts, or past mistakes. Love simply sees a heart in need. Education of the soul begins when we recognize that poverty may strip away comfort, but it cannot strip away dignity, and wealth may buy safety, but only kindness buys peace. Through knowledge, we understand that every act of care matters. Through lesson, we learn forgiveness is heavier than revenge. Through education, we discover that family is built not by blood alone, but by presence, patience, and promise. May knowledge guide your steps, may lesson soften your judgments, and may education of the heart keep you open to every soul you meet. To everyone watching this video, I wish you good health, a joyful life, and daily peace that stays with you no matter the storm. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear that love and compassion can heal even the deepest wounds. We upload engaging, heartfelt videos every day. Come back often. Tell me in the comments, how did this story make you feel? Does it connect to something real in your own life? Share your emotions. I read every comment and truly listened to the hearts behind them. Thank you for being here. See you again in the next video. Disclaimer. All stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.